Hello, lovelies. My name is Kate. I'm an archaeologist and historian, and today we will be reviewing Katy Perry's music video for Dark Horse and diving into some of the references to ancient Egypt. The video opens with text telling us this begins in Memphis. Memphis was an important city throughout ancient Egypt due to its location. It was an important trade and political center, however, it was only the capital during the Old Kingdom. If we are assuming that Katy is filling the role of pharaoh in this video, that would place it during the age of the pyramids, around 4,000 years ago. The boat we see here at the beginning is called a bark. In addition to being a practical way to get across water, these types of boats also had religious significance. The sun god Ra traveled on a bark, also called a solar bark, through the sky and into the underworld at night. Barks were also used in a funeral context, as a way for the deceased to cross over into the next life. Here, a bark is used in a literal boat, but can also symbolize the pharaoh's connection to Ra and Horus. At the top, you see what looks like a double uraeus. This symbol represents the divine authority and solar connection to the king. Additionally, the snake represents the goddess Wajet, goddess of Lower Egypt, who, along with the vulture goddess Nekhbet, goddess of Upper Egypt, protected the king. In this zoomed out shot, we can see the columns that have a similar design to the papyriform columns that you can find throughout ancient Egypt. On top of the three pillars that are visible within the frame, we can see three golden statues on top. These appear to be three of the four protective goddesses, mimicking the appearance of the statues of King Tutankhamun's, or also known as King Tut's, canopic shrine. These four goddesses are Isis, the goddess of magic and healing, Neith, goddess of creation and hunting, Nephthys, goddess of death and protection, and Serket, goddess of healing. On the walls in the back, we can see scenes from the Book of the Dead. Everything about this location is giving funerary context, which is very confusing why Katy would be conducting royal business here, as the everyday function of Memphis happened on the east side, while the funerary context happened on the west side. But I guess as queen, she can do whatever she likes. Here we can see Katy seated in front of a sphinx, the name for an image of a human head on a lion's body. This particular sphinx most likely represents the pharaoh due to the Nemi's headdress, complete with uraeus. The sphinx also has a lovely pectoral necklace with a feather designed collar that connects to the terminals in the back. Sphinxes were symbols of pharaonic power, visually demonstrating their power and might, as well as connecting them to solar attributes. It was believed a lion guarded the space where the sun rose and set, making the lion a very important animal. Can we also take a moment to appreciate just how wonderfully vibrant and colorful everything is? Oftentimes, when we see relics of the ancient world, we only see the marble, plain blocks on the buildings, but in reality, they would have been covered in bright and colorful paint to a point that our eyes would think it was garish. The set designers, the costume designers, the makeup artists, they all get a huge thumbs up from me. One thing that is off about this scene is this one pot here. Granted, it's not terribly close up, but it appears to be black figure Greek pottery. There was trade between these ancient civilizations, however, black figure pottery wasn't invented until around 700 BCE. If we are still operating under the impression that this is the Old Kingdom, when Memphis was the capital, this takes place about 1,500 years prior to this pottery style. Someone should probably tell Mr. Peabody to be more careful when he's time traveling. In this scene, she's holding up what one might think is the Eye of Ra. However, if I have my directions correct, she's actually holding up a left eye, which is the Eye of Horus. So without getting too deep into the weeds, the Eye of Ra is the right eye, which represents power and victory over your enemies of Egypt, and also has solar connections. The Eye of Horus is the left eye, which represents healing and protection and has lunar connections. The designs for the eyes are very similar, and the best way to tell them apart is to see which direction the swoop under the eye is going. Here we're also able to get a much better look at the background walls. In this shot, we can see spell 30, also known as the weighing of the heart, on the walls. Very quickly, the heart is weighed on a scale against the feather of truth, called Ma'at. If you did good things, your heart would be light, and you would proceed into the field of reeds and eternal life. If you did bad things, your heart would weigh down the scale, and the demon Amet would eat your soul, and you become trapped as an empty shell in the underworld, or as it was called, Duat. The purpose of the Book of the Dead was to assist the deceased getting through the trials in Duat, because no one wants to get eaten. There was also this concept that if it was written or drawn and then paired with the correct magic, it would then become real. So by having this book and pairing it with the correct magic, everything in the book would become reality. So even 4,000 years ago, leave it to people to still be finding loopholes. Nestled in between these two columns, there is a host of gods in anthropomorphic forms, which means they're part human and part animal. In the position with the most prominence on the right is Ra, although it is a bit unusual that he is wearing the crown of Egypt rather than having a sun disk over his head. Horus is usually the one that wears the crown, as the pharaoh is the embodiment of Horus. Instead, it appears here Horus is in the back in a corner in timeout. Back in the center is the god Anubis, the jackal-headed god who oversees mummification. Behind Anubis is the ibis-headed god Thoth, god of writing and learning. And off to Thoth's left is what I assume to be Bastet due to the cat head. Bastet was the goddess of home and childbirth, but I do find it interesting that they decided to depict this goddess with rock-hard abs. I do have some questions about what they were using for reference. Then tucked away in the back looks like what could be the lion-headed goddess Sekhmet. Sekhmet is my favorite goddess. She is one of the most powerful gods in the entire ancient Egyptian pantheon. She is ferocious and destructive. Her very name comes from the word for power. But she also represents healing and medicine. She is, in my opinion, the manifestation of what women are. Throughout this video, snakes have been a theme, and they were a very popular motif in ancient Egypt. Snakes themselves were not good or bad. The role they played was dictated by the assigned morality. Snakes can bite and be deadly for certain, outside their world always lurking, waiting to swallow the sun and destroy the world was the primordial snake Apep. However, snakes could also be symbols of protection and healing. The snake god Mehen surrounds Ra on his solar bark as he travels through the Duat, protecting him from Apep. So the numerous snake references is not out of place.
In this section, we get the introduction of Juicy J, who has a featured part. They certainly have a creative entrance for him. That is a solid word I would use. I like the idea of the glyphs on the glasses. They are real glyphs, but they do not say anything. So through this section of the video, Katy is cycling through various suitors to see who gets her attention, and in comes this guy. You don't know who he is, but then he takes off his face covering, and it's so big. And she turns him into a purse. It's quite rude.
Make sure to check Ancient Aliens off your bingo card.
And we have reached the end, leaving off with this freaky ass dog. Overall, I think it was a very good video. I think the production team did some research, and they got authentic things from ancient Egypt. I think they did a fantastic job with how colorful and vibrant everything is. Really brought the world to life. So out of 10, I would give this music video a solid 7. The historical accuracy of things takes some theatrical license to it. But overall, not bad. Thumbs up from me. If you like this video, feel free to like and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you know every time that I post. If you have any suggestions of other videos I should react to or break down and explain, feel free to leave that in the comments, and you may see it in a future video. Until the next time.